And we start with Lucas Tomlinson live in West Palm Beach, where the Commander-in-Chief has been spending the holidays. And Lucas, you've had great coverage overnight here. What else are we learning?
December 18th, 2025, 6:12 a.m. local time, Southern Caribbean Sea. The water is steel gray, the horizon blurred by morning haze. But inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Gerald Ford, the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, haze means nothing. Digital screens paint reality in high definition. Radar returns, satellite feeds, electronic signatures. And this morning, something is different. On the main display, 4 contacts hold formation 47 nautical miles northeast, not moving, not patrolling, just waiting. The tactical action officer zooms the feed. 4 Venezuelan Navy vessels, frigate class, positioned in a deliberate line across the Ford's projected transit route. The watch officer's voice is calm but pointed. Sir, Contact Group Tango 4 is maintaining blocking formation, bearing 68. They're not responding to bridge-to-bridge hails. The captain steps closer to the screen, arms crossed. How long have they been there? Since 400, sir, 3 hours. They moved into position under darkness. The room goes quiet for a moment, not confusion, calculation. The USS Gerald Ford is 1106 feet of nuclear-powered sovereignty. She carries 75 aircraft, 4,500 sailors, and enough firepower to reshape entire coastlines. She doesn't ask permission to transit international waters, she doesn't negotiate passage, and she certainly doesn't stop. But 4 warships positioned deliberately across her path, that's not a navigational error, that's a statement. The captain's jaw tightens. Maintain course, increase speed to 22 knots, and get me a direct line to Fleet Forces Command. Outside, the sun breaks through the clouds, casting long shadows across the carrier's massive flight deck. Below, in the hangar bays, aircraft sit loaded and fueled. FA-18 Super Hornets, E-2D Hawkeyes, EA-18G Growlers, every one of them capable of launching within minutes. On the bridge, binoculars sweep the horizon. The Venezuelan ships are visible now, dark hulls, gray superstructures, bow waves cutting white against the blue. They're not approaching, they're not retreating, they're anchoring a line. A challenge written in steel and silence. The radio operator tries again. Venezuelan naval vessels, this is U.S. Navy warship USS Gerald Ford transiting international waters under freedom of navigation protocols. Alter your formation, static, then a response, cold, clipped, accented. USS Ford, this is Venezuelan Navy. You are approaching Venezuelan maritime interest zone. Reduce speed and hold position for inspection. The bridge goes silent. Every officer heard it. Inspection. The word hangs in the air like a loaded weapon. The captain's response is immediate and absolute. Negative. We are exercising lawful transit through international waters. We will not reduce speed. We will not alter course. Move your vessels. The line goes dead. No acknowledgement. No compliance, just silence. And 43 nautical miles ahead, 4 Venezuelan warships hold their line. This isn't a miscommunication. This is a test. And the Ford is about to respond in a way nobody expected. 6:47 a.m., the distance closes steadily. The USS Gerald Ford maintains 22 knots, her massive hull cutting through the Caribbean swells with mechanical precision. On the horizon, the Venezuelan formation grows clearer. 4 ships, spaced 2 nautical miles apart, a human wall of steel stretched across 8 miles of open ocean. Inside the Combat Information Center, data streams in from every sensor. The Spy-6 radar system, the most advanced on any warship afloat, tracks each vessel in exquisite detail. Lupo-class frigates, Italian-built, aged but capable, each mounting 127 guns, anti-ship missiles, and torpedoes. Individually, no match for the Ford. Together, positioned defensively, a symbolic barrier. Sir, range now 38 nautical miles. The Venezuelan formation is holding steady. No course change, no speed adjustment. Copy, the captain replies. Launch the Hawkeye. On the flight deck, the chaos of carrier operations begins. Yellow-shirted aircraft, handlers guide an E-2D Hawkeye toward the catapult. The twin turboprop aircraft, bristling with radar equipment, is the eyes of the fleet. Within minutes, it's hooked to the catapult, engines roaring. The launch officer drops his hand. The catapult fires. In 2 seconds, the Hawkeye accelerates from 0 to 140 knots and launches into the sky. The aircraft banks east, climbing rapidly, its rotating radar dome already spinning. From 25,000 feet, the Hawkeye sees everything. The Venezuelan ships in perfect detail. Their radar emissions, their weapon systems, even the heat signatures of their engines, and something else, movement, additional contacts. 22 miles behind the Venezuelan formation, 2 more vessels appear, patrol boats, fast attack craft. Smaller, faster, and loaded with anti-ship missiles. They're holding back, concealed until now. The picture becomes clearer. This isn't just a blockade. It's a layered defense. The forward line to create confrontation, the rear element to respond if the forward pushes through. It's a trap designed not to destroy, but to provoke, to force the US to either stop or escalate. The Hawkeye pilot radios back. Forward, Hawkeye 1, confirms 6 Venezuelan naval units total, forward line of 4 frigates, 2 fast attack craft in trailing position. All units active, weapons systems hot. In the CIC screens update instantly, the tactical picture is now complete, and the decision matrix shifts. The captain picks up the secure phone. Get me SOUTHCOM. Now, 7:14 am. 31 nautical miles separate the Ford from the Venezuelan line. At current speed, contact in 79 minutes. But those 79 minutes are a countdown to something far bigger than a naval encounter. In Tampa, Florida, at U.S. Southern Command headquarters, the secure video feed from the Ford's CIC appears on the wall. Admirals and intelligence officers study the formation. The timing is deliberate. 3 days ago, the U.S. announced expanded counter-narcotics operations in the Caribbean. 2 days ago, Venezuelan President Maduro condemned it as aggression. Yesterday, Venezuelan state media claimed the U.S. was preparing to violate their territorial waters. And this morning, 4 warships positioned directly in the Ford's path. This is theater. High-stakes, high-visibility theater designed to play on every Latin American news channel by noon. The order comes through within minutes. Clear, unambiguous. Do not alter course. Do not reduce speed. Exercise freedom of navigation. Show presence. Do not fire unless fired upon. The captain acknowledges. Understood. We proceed as planned. But he adds one more element. A show of force that doesn't involve a single weapon. Launch the air wing. On the Ford's flight deck, organized chaos erupts. 4 FA-18 Super Hornets are moved into position. Wings unfold. Weapons checks complete. Engines scream to life. One by one, they're launched. Catapult shots thunder across the deck. Each aircraft rocketing into the sky in bursts of steam and raw power. The Hornets form up in pairs. They don't head toward the Venezuelan ships. They climb high and wide, establishing a combat air patrol pattern that circles the entire carrier strike group. Visible, unmistakable, a message written in contrails, then 2 more launches, EA-18G Growlers. Electronic warfare aircraft. They don't carry bombs. They carry something more insidious. The ability to jam, blind, and confuse enemy radar systems without firing a shot. The Growlers take station 50 miles out, directly between the Ford and the Venezuelan formation. Their systems go active. Immediately, the electromagnetic spectrum lights up. The Venezuelan frigates' fire control radars flicker. Their communication channels fill with static. Screens aboard their ships blur and reset. Nothing is destroyed, nothing is damaged. But suddenly, the Venezuelan commanders are operating half-blind, and they know exactly why. 7:38 am, 23 nautical miles. The Ford's bow cleaves through the water, unstoppable, unwavering. On the Venezuelan flagship, the commander faces an impossible choice. His orders were clear: block the American carrier, show strength, defend national pride, but his radar is compromised. His communications are degraded, and in the sky above, 8 American combat aircraft circle like patient predators. He tries the radio again. USS Ford, you are entering restricted waters. This is your final warning. The Ford's response is colder than before. Venezuelan commander, there are no restricted waters at this location. We are transiting international sea lanes under established maritime law. Your formation is creating a hazard to navigation. Move your vessels immediately. Behind the Venezuelan line, the two fast attack boats edge forward. Their crews are younger, less experienced, more aggressive. One boat's commander locks his targeting radar onto the Ford. In the CIC, alarms sound instantly. Sir, we're being painted. Fire control radar from Venezuelan fast attack craft. Bearing 72, the tension spikes. Every sailor in the room knows what this means. A targeting radar isn't a warning. It's the step before a missile launch. The captain's voice cuts through the noise. Do not overreact. Maintain course, but launch countermeasures to standby and bring the escort destroyers forward. Flanking the Ford, two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers accelerate. The USS Winston Churchill and USS James E. Williams move into screening positions, their own weapon systems trained on the Venezuelan fast attack boats. The message is immediate and unambiguous. If you fire, you won't get a second shot. On the Venezuelan flagship, the radio crackles. The commander's own headquarters is calling. Urgent, frantic. Stand down, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. The political calculus has shifted. What looked like a strong defensive stand on paper is now a potential massacre on radar screens. The commander hesitates. His ships are outmatched. His aircraft are non-existent. The Americans haven't fired a shot, but they've already won. He keys his radio. One last attempt to save face. USS Ford, we are adjusting formation to allow passage. Maintain your current heading. On the Ford's bridge, no one cheers, no one celebrates. The captain simply nods. Acknowledged, we are proceeding. Slowly, deliberately, the four Venezuelan frigates begin to turn. Not a retreat, a lateral shift, opening a corridor 3 miles wide directly along the Ford's course. The fast attack boats fall back, their targeting radars going cold, and the USS Gerald R. Ford, all 100,000 tons of her, sails straight through the gap, unstoppable, undeterred, undefeated. 8:29 am. The Ford passes through the Venezuelan formation at 22 knots. On her flight deck, sailors in colored jerseys continue operations as if nothing unusual just occurred. Aircraft are recovered. Maintenance crews swarm, fuel lines connect and disconnect. It's routine, because for the U.S. Navy, this was routine. The Venezuelan ships fall behind, shrinking against the horizon. Their crews watch in silence as the American carrier strike group continues south. Not a shot fired, not a threat issued, just presence, overwhelming, undeniable presence. Inside the CIC, the watch officer logs the final entry. Encounter resolved, no hostile action, Venezuelan formation dispersed, transit complete, but the real story isn't written in the log. It's written in what didn't happen. No escalation, no collision, no miscalculation that spirals into an international incident, just discipline, training, and the quiet confidence that comes from operating the most powerful naval force ever assembled. In Caracas, the Venezuelan government will spin this as a successful defense of sovereignty. State media will show footage of their ships monitoring the American carrier. Officials will claim they forced the U.S. to respect Venezuelan interests. But in naval headquarters around the world, the truth is understood. 4 warships tried to block a U.S. carrier. The U.S. didn't blink, didn't stop, and didn't negotiate. It simply proceeded. And the blockade dissolved like morning fog. This is the reality of modern naval power. It's not always about missiles and explosions. Sometimes it's about the absolute certainty that if you stand in the way, you'll be bypassed, outmaneuvered, and outclassed before you even realize the game is over. 9:15 am, the Caribbean Sea returns to calm. The Ford continues her scheduled transit, maintaining course toward joint exercises with allied navies further south. Her aircraft have been recovered. Her escorts have resumed standard formation. The crisis that never was is already fading into routine operations. But in intelligence centers across 3 continents, the encounter is being analyzed frame by frame. Every radar track, every radio transmission, every decision point, because this wasn't just about 1 carrier and 4 frigates. It was about what happens when a regional power tries to assert control over international waters and runs into a force that won't be controlled. The Venezuelan Navy isn't incompetent. Their commanders aren't reckless. They were executing a political order, show strength, challenge American presence, create a narrative of resistance, but they encountered something they couldn't overcome. Not superior weapons, though the Ford has those. Not greater numbers, though the US can surge those. They encountered doctrine. The US Navy doesn't recognize maritime interest zones that aren't legally defined. It doesn't acknowledge restrictions on international waters. And it doesn't stop when challenged by forces that lack the capability to enforce their demands. That's not aggression. That's certainty, and certainty is the most powerful deterrent in existence. In Washington, the incident is briefed to the National Security Council within 2 hours. The assessment is clear: Venezuelan posturing, no real threat. Ford executed perfectly, situation resolved without escalation. The president is briefed in 3 sentences. He nods and moves to the next topic. Because for the United States, this is Tuesday, but for Venezuela, it's a lesson. You can position your ships, you can issue warnings, you can lock your radars, but if you're not willing to follow through, if you're not capable of backing your threats with action, then you're not creating a blockade. You're creating a photo opportunity, and the US Navy will sail right through it. 10:03 am. Aboard the Ford, the morning watch rotation continues. Sailors head to chow, pilots debrief in ready rooms, maintenance crews inspect aircraft. The ship's routine never stopped. Because while the world saw a tense standoff, the crew of the Ford saw another day at work. This is what separates professional navies from political ones. Professional navies train for scenarios like this until they become muscle memory. They don't react emotionally. They don't take bait. They execute doctrine, follow rules of engagement, and maintain composure even when pressured. Political navies, on the other hand, are tools of messaging. They're positioned to send signals, to create optics, to serve domestic narratives. They're not designed to win. They're designed to be seen trying. And when a political navy meets a professional one, the outcome is predetermined, not by firepower, by mindset. The Ford didn't win this morning because she has more guns. She won because her crew never doubted the outcome. From the captain to the newest sailor, everyone aboard knew exactly what would happen. They would maintain course. The Venezuelan ships would move, and the Ford would continue her mission. That confidence isn't arrogance. It's the result of decades of training, hundreds of successful operations, and the knowledge that their doctrine has been tested in every ocean on Earth. Down in the carrier's hangar bay, an aviation technician chalks a small mark on the side of an FA-18. It's tradition. Every time the aircraft is part of a significant operation, a small notation. Today's mark reads simply, Caribbean Freedom of Nav, Feb 3, 2026. 30 years from now, when that aircraft is retired to a museum, someone will see that mark and wonder what happened that day. The answer will be both simple and profound. Nothing happened, and that's exactly the point. 10:47 am. 116 nautical miles south of the encounter, the Ford strike group maintains formation. The sea is open. The skies are clear. Routine operations continue. But in the ready rooms and CIC, sailors are already learning from the encounter. Debriefs are conducted. Radar tracks are reviewed. Communications are analyzed. What worked? What could improve? How to be even sharper next time? Because there will be a next time. Freedom of navigation operations don't end. They're continuous, global, and essential. Every time a nation tries to claim international waters as their own, the U.S. Navy responds, not with threats, with presence. Sometimes it's the South China Sea, where Chinese vessels try to restrict passages through international straits. Sometimes it's the Black Sea, where Russian ships shadow NATO operations. And sometimes it's the Caribbean, where Venezuelan warships try to block an American carrier. The location changes, the players change, but the outcome never does. The U.S. Navy transits where international law allows. Period. This doctrine is written in blood and history. It's the legacy of convoys that kept Britain alive in World War II. It's the lesson of the tanker war in the Persian Gulf. It's the reason global trade flows freely and international waters remain international. And it's why, on this Tuesday morning in February 2026, 4 Venezuelan warships moved aside, not because they were afraid, but because they understood reality. You can challenge the U.S. Navy, you can position your forces, you can issue statements and demands, but at the end of the day, the Ford will sail where she's ordered to sail, and your choice is simple: move or be irrelevant. 11:30 am. The encounter is already making headlines. Venezuelan state media claims their navy successfully monitored a U.S. carrier. American media reports the Ford bypassed a Venezuelan formation. International analysts debate the implications for regional power dynamics, but aboard the Ford, none of that matters. The mission continues. The next flight cycle launches. Training exercises resume. The ship operates exactly as she did yesterday and will tomorrow. Because for the sailors aboard CVN-78, this morning wasn't historic. It was professional. And professionalism is what allows a 100,000-ton warship to sail through a blockade without firing a shot, without altering course, and without breaking stride. So here's the question for you. Should the U.S. continue these freedom of navigation operations even when they create tension? Or should regional powers be allowed to restrict international waters? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more real naval encounters where strategy, discipline, and raw power intersect, make sure you hit subscribe. You'll get exclusive access, early videos, and support for content that cuts through the noise. Until next time, fair winds and following seas. And remember, in international waters, there's only one rule. The Navy with the strongest resolve controls the outcome. And this morning, nobody expected 4 Venezuelan warships to learn that lesson so clearly.